what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Today we are doing the news, right? The cyber news. So what is new in cybersecurity for the last couple of weeks? Well, there's actually been quite a few things. Some of them may sound like real simple at the forefront of things. When you just see the headline, you're like, okay. But when you dive deeper into them, they're really, really interesting. So we're going to deep dive into them. And then I've got one that I want to show you guys that it was an April Fool's thing that I just think is hilarious. So I want to show you. It's not really cyber related, but let's go ahead and dive into it. If you guys enjoy getting the cyber news from me, let me know. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. It's something new I'm trying, so we'll see if it's something you guys enjoy or not. But let's go ahead and dive into it. The first thing is just AT&T data breach. If you didn't see this, there's like 73 million accounts leaked. I don't know what data is involved in that because I didn't get a notification from them, so I didn't see what they actually are saying people's information is leaked. I know they said social security numbers and stuff like that, but I don't know the full scope of what information they got, whether that's socials, addresses, phone numbers, or if it's more than that, maybe it's your social and then anyone on the account social, that type of thing. I'm not sure. But just kind of crazy to think about, from 73 million accounts that AT&T had leaked. Now, some interesting stuff here. If you are an AT&T customer, they do say that they're only from 2019 and before. So you can see right here, 2019 or earlier. And they did a robust investigation and found that only 7.6 million are current customers or current account holders. Now, there's some takeaways with this. That means that, give or take, so there's 65.4 million account holders that were previous account holders that don't still hold an account. Keep in mind, there's going to be a large number of them, not a majority of them, but a large number of them that are probably passed away. Because if this is from 2019 and earlier, that's 5 years of people passing away. So understand that there's probably going to be some of that, which means that those accounts and stuff, or those social security numbers and all that stuff, are invalid, unless that can go deeper. And then there's going to be the people that have current accounts. I'm not 100% sure if you have a current account, if that means you leaked more data or if they retain data. I don't know their privacy policies, but if they retain data from previous account holders, including social security numbers, that's a problem, right? So, which most companies do for a short period, but they don't retain them forever, right? So, I'm not sure what AT&T's privacy policies entail, but this is a pretty big leak. The other thing they said here was that you should change your password immediately and set up two-factor authentication where possible. Now, the reason they say this is because if you have an AT&T account, yes, it's your account on AT&T.com or whatever, right? But if you're using a password that you also use somewhere else, or even a variation of it, they are now going to start pivoting to your other accounts. Now, with 76 million or 73 million, excuse me, they're probably going to be selling a lot of them. There's no way they're going to be going through and trying every 73 million accounts, right? That would just be forever. So they're probably going to be selling them, and that's probably what where the leaks are coming from. But just keep posted on this, because you may get a letter in the mail, or you may get an email that says, hey, you've had your account compromised and you get a free year of credit monitoring. So just keep an eye on that. Okay, the next one, the Ivanti. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because Ivanti's had a ton of CVEs lately. If you guys don't know what Ivanti is, it's a ticketing system used quite frequently in enterprise environments. And you can see researchers identify multiple China hacker groups exploiting Ivanti's security flaws. Now, the reason I did this one over the 4 security vulnerabilities that just came out is because these are them being actively taken advantage of in the wild. So you can see multiple China Nexus threat actors have been linked to the zero-day exploitation of 3 of the security flaws. And these are one from 2023, one from 2024, and another one from 2024. The clusters are being tracked by Mandiant under the monikers UNC, OK. And you can see the Google Cloud subsidiary said it has also observed financially motivated actors exploiting this. So it's being exploited quite broadly across the spectrum. And the reason this is such a big deal is really because, and it says here they're probably doing crypto mining, which it may be true, may not be. But the reason it's such a big deal is because Ivanti has had a tremendous amount of CVEs coming out lately. And don't get me wrong, Ivanti has all kinds of pieces and different tools and things like that. So there's some of them were over here, some of them were over here. They're not all just one platform that's just having all these security vulnerabilities. But this, keep in mind the amount of reputational harm that Ivanti has had in the last year. They probably have a monetary value on it, but I do not have a monetary value. But I guarantee it is millions and millions of dollars that they've lost, because if I'm an Ivanti customer, I'm going to start going, should I continue to use this? Because I just keep seeing in the news, Ivanti. So that's actually an interesting one, because I'm not sure what the reputational harm is on this yet, because it's just recent. But they may see a pretty vast reputational harm. I'm sure if you looked at their value, it's dropped a decent amount. So you can see the threat actor was linked to post-exploitation, actively leading to the deployment of Silver Command and Control Framework. Okay, so you can see they've actually started a command and control network specifically with this, right? And you can see they're going to go into details about how they do it and all that stuff. That's not really necessary. We don't really care about that. But it's interesting to see that, and then you can see activity for this cluster started in December, focusing on the Citrus Scalar Active Directory. Okay, so you can see that this China group is actually actively exploiting this. There was 4 more vulnerabilities. This is only listing 3 that I see anyway that they're seeing be take, but there was 4 more listed just in the last, I think, couple weeks. So these, and one of these is from 2023. So this is only 2 of the ones from 2024. So this is a very large scale thing, and just keep an eye out if you have Ivanti. Make sure you stay up to date on this. This is something you want to make sure you're actually paying attention to, because as they keep releasing them, also understand when multiple CVEs come out, sometimes it's on a platform that you're like, okay, it's a minimal, like a small, maybe a medium or something, or even a low, but they can string together multiple CVEs to get into a network, right? So for instance, cross-site scripting may not allow you directly remote code execution, right? But you might be able to string together that cross-site scripting to get somebody to do something on the back end that then pivots you into a remote code execution environment, right? So you can pivot, or you can string together a couple of small, lower tier exploits to get a large exploit. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at these things. All right, next. This is one of my favorite ones, not because of how it happened, but because of how the guy stopped it. One guy might have stopped one of the biggest attacks that we've seen. Now, here's the funny thing is, this has happened in the past, if you didn't know this. Not this specific attack, but the one guy stopping it. And that's actually really, really cool. So the WannaCry cyber attack, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the WannaCry cyber attack was stopped initially by one guy. And what it was he reverse engineered it, and he found that they were basically calling back to the same IP or URL or domain, right? And he went in and blocked that domain for pretty much everybody for on the internet, right? He didn't do it himself. He called it in and had them do it, and they blocked that IP and domain. And when that happened, the WannaCry no longer worked. Now, fast forward, they rewrote it, they changed it, and they sent it back out, and it still worked. But he initially stopped it himself. That's incredible to think about, that you single-handedly stopped something. This guy did the same thing, right? This guy is very interesting. This XZUtils, okay? So if you don't follow if you're not following this is a really big attack because of a couple of reasons. One, this is not it's uncommon, but it's something that people don't pay attention to and they don't focus on when they should be. And what it is this XZUtils, right? It's a library that they're putting for major distributions in Linux. Okay, so it's something that people use. It's a suite of tools that people are using, utilities, right? Here's the problem. Right here, the guy was masquerading as a legitimate developer for years. He was building this XZUtils, right? He was masquerading as this guy for years. Imagine you think you trust a developer, right? And the whole time he had this back door in the XZ utils that he could have executed at any point. He was building up to a very large attack is what was happening. He was getting these spread around, and he did. And then this one guy, and we can see if we find the guy's name right here, Andres Freund. Hopefully I'm saying that right. But he noticed unusual errors and performance issues while working on a system running Debian. It was created by a threat actor by inserting malicious code into the open source library for XZ utils. So the library itself had a vulnerability in it, or malicious code in it, specifically waiting for him to target it, right? Now, the backdoor targeted SSH, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing that's crazy. There's two things here. So first off, this Andres, he found this and stopped it, right? Because he said, hey, here we go. I found this malicious code. I reverse engineered it. We need to stop this. And he did. And that's incredible. But what you need to think about is there's a couple of things that has happened. And this is kind of a big one here. The SolarWinds attack. If you guys don't know, this is very similar to the SolarWinds attack. What happened in SolarWinds was SolarWinds had a backdoor into it for years and years and years. And nobody knew. And then all of a sudden it was on a large scale. Not everybody, but somebody took advantage of all of them, right? Understand this was going to be, like they said here, this would have dwarfed SolarWinds because so many people use this. The scary thing about this is, who do you trust at a certain point, right? You have to trust somebody, or else you just don't have any tools, or you write them all internally, which is almost impossible, right? So you have to trust somebody. If you can't trust some of the bigger names in the industry, who can you trust? And I don't have an answer for you. This is something you have to do by a case-by-case basis, but it's crazy to think about. So if you have this XZ utils and you're trusting it, and it for years it's working, doing what you want, etc., etc., and then you find this out, now what? Because all the other tools you think that you trust, do you? This is why I think it's extremely important for two things. One, I get really nervous when people start talking about AI developing code. Not necessarily because I think AI cannot develop code. I think it's possible. I think right now it still has to have human intervention to make that code proper. But two, the biggest thing is, what happens when half of your developers at your company don't really know how to write code? They're just using AI and then manipulating it a little bit. This is what happens, right? They start to not find this, because here's what's wild, right? Think about this. This open source XZ utils, right? He had malicious code into it. Only one guy found it. Think about how widespread this was. And same thing with SolarWinds. Only one person found it at the time, right? That's wild. This was out in the wild, and only one person found it. Think about that. If you have a software that is going to sometimes millions of people and only one guy noticed it, it's pretty safe to bet that it's not that hard to hide malicious code, right? So you need to be able to actually break through that code and look at it if you can, because you need to understand what you're doing, because a lot of people talk about zero trust. This takes it to another level, but you almost have to have zero trust, including in the applications that you work in. Now, this brings me to another point, and that is this attack is actually happening much wider now, because cybersecurity has been around long enough that you can see these long-term attacks happen. It used to be just kind of like, oh, I got this 0 day, and I've got a CVE over here, whatever. Now you're seeing a long-term planning, and that is building up reputation, building up tools, and and then inserting malicious code. That is a more dangerous attack that is coming along. But the other thing that you're seeing is these libraries. So if you're an attacker and you don't want to spend years building a tool and all this stuff to have an attack set up, you can build a library, right? And that's what they did here. He didn't build out the entire XZ utils. The XZ utils is it actually works, right? But he built an open source library for it, and that's where the malicious code was. So what that means is he just had to build this library. if you've ever used Python or anything else, you can import these libraries. Make sure you are importing libraries that you 100% understand and trust. Do not just start importing libraries because you saw it on GitHub, or importing libraries because you saw it, someone recommend it, or this or that, right? If you don't know what that library is doing, here's what happens. So make sure. It's something I see all the time. People are writing code and they're like, oh, import this, import that, da, da, da. They don't realize they're actually bringing code onto their machine that could be malicious. They don't even understand it. So that's one thing, very, 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 very important. The other thing that this leads me to is this is happening actually on phantom libraries, is happening with AI. This is something that is happening quite a bit. If you don't know what that is, what's happening is when you go to ChatGPT or any of these AI sites, right, and you're typing in, hey, I want to do this, there's a lot of times these AIs, because they just have a predictive index, they're just predicting the next word, right? There's a lot of times their libraries, they'll give you a library, and that name of that library, let's say like Scapy is one of them, right, that you can actually use to mess with packets and stuff in Python. They will give you a library that doesn't exist. Like it'll say, like, instead of Scapy, like it might be Scabby or something. You know, I'm not saying that that's not correct, but I'm just saying in general, it'll be a library that does not exist. And people will be like, okay, let me try to go import that. Boom, import library. And it'll probably give you an error and be like, this library doesn't exist or whatever. What attackers are doing is they're finding those libraries that AI bots are making up because it's happening. And when they make one up, the attacker goes and makes a library named that, and then puts malicious code in there. So then every time somebody asks ChatGPT and it gives you that wrong answer, and I say ChatGPT, I just mean any generative AI, but when it gives you that answer, you actually will import a malicious library. So make sure you know what you're doing with your libraries. This is something I can't stress enough. So because this attack is not going away anytime soon, it's just going to keep getting larger. Okay, lastly, the Microsoft security chickens have come to roost. I like the article title, but basically, if you guys remember, the Microsoft Exchange Online hack happened, and they actually finished the review board, as they call it, but they finished the investigation, basically, right? And what they found was that, and this shouldn't come to as any surprise to anybody, but what they found is that Microsoft, guess what, was lax in their culture and their untruthfulness in public communications. Basically, long story short, they have shoddy cybersecurity practices. Not surprised. Microsoft has been doing this for so long. Microsoft, years and years ago, this is what caused, if you guys know that, like nowadays, some ethical hackers, you don't see it as often anymore because companies are taking it more seriously. But back in the day, they would have to go and say, hey, if you don't publish this and fix this, you have 6 months and I'm going to go and publicly disclose this. And people used to say, like, is that ethical? Is it rude, or is it not ethical? Excuse me, etc. But they had to, because these companies like Microsoft would not fix them. They would sweep them under the rugs. There were examples of where Microsoft hid things for years of vulnerabilities they knew existed because they didn't want to fix them, right? So this here is actually saying that this is here's an interesting fact right here. The board finds that the intrusion was preventable and never should occur. This is where you start getting in some trouble as far as legalities and fines and stuff, because if you could have prevented something, don't get me wrong, most attacks are preventable, but if you could have very easily prevented it, meaning there was negligence, right, then you start getting into trouble. And it sounds like that's what they found here. So here they're saying they're pointing the finger directly at the CEO, and that's tough, because if you're the CEO, you're not looking so hot right now, right? And that is an elected position, so you kind of have to do what you got to do and get stuff done. So whatever it takes to get it done, you might want to get it done. So this is actually something that shouldn't surprise you guys, but just understand that this isn't uncommon for Microsoft's history. I'll say that. And I will say Microsoft has gotten 10 times better over the years of doing it, but they're still kind of not there where I would say they need to be. So lastly, the last thing I want to show you guys is I'm going to pull it up here, is the April Fool's joke. And This isn't cyber related, but if you guys haven't seen it, it is hilarious. I can't believe that a company actually did it, and they did it right, in my opinion. This is hilarious. If you haven't seen this, this is the Nintendo Switch Virtual Boy for Nintendo Switch announcement, and it was April Fool's joke. But the last piece of this is so funny to me. All right, so I'll be honest with you. I didn't pay attention to the date, and they had me in the first half. So like right here, they kind of had me. I thought, okay, they do, because they make those headsets with mobile devices. So I kind of thought, okay, like great, now Switch is coming out with VR, right? And I thought, whatever. I would never get it, but whatever. And I didn't think much of it. And then I saw this, and I thought, that's better than the pass through on like the Oculus. So this has got to be generated. This can't be live footage, right? So I thought, no way, this is live. Then I saw this, and I thought, okay, so it's, and this is just funny that this is where my head was going, but I still believed it at this point. And I just kind of thought, okay, this is just like it's more of a kiddie AR thing. It's not really, I thought it's kind of cool, but it's more of an AR thing. It's not so much a VR type thing. And then I saw this, and I thought, okay, they're just, what do you call it? They're just being extravagant. It's not actually real. Like, when I say not real, like this, I didn't think this was real. I thought, okay, they're just trying to play it up, right? Because it doesn't make any sense that you would be able to talk to the person and then this is happening, right? And then I saw this, and I kind of started to realize this might be a joke, because this doesn't make, like, imagine vacuuming while trying to play this. And then I saw this, and this, in my opinion, this is one of the funniest April Fool's things, because as soon as I saw it, I knew it was a joke at that point. I was like, it's obviously not possible. But look how, I mean, if you don't think this is funny, I don't know what to say. You don't have a sense of humor. This is the example, in my opinion, of a company doing April Fools correctly. I think Nintendo did a great job with that. I think it's hilarious, because I don't know. I've grew up playing Mario Kart, and so I instantly, and I've played VR Mario Kart. There's not an actual Mario Kart, but there's a game out there, and I've played it, and it's really fun. And I saw that, and I just thought that, like, the amount of people that might believe that is insane, because I literally thought in my head, like, there's somebody out there that thinks this is real. I know there is, because somebody's going to think they can put the Switch on their freaking face and drive down the road. And that to me was funny. So that's it, guys. I wanted to end on something light and fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys had a good April Fools and good Easter. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content and the news. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. Thanks, guys. Bye.